I would love it if we could shift the debate from government versus private to one of good quality education versus poor quality education.
Hello, my name is Pranav Kothari. I work at Educational Initiatives in the Large Scale Education Programs Division, the division that makes assessments and personalized learning solutions for all low-income children studying in India. I'm so excited to have Amitav Virmani on the show today. He is the CEO of the Education Alliance. I relate to Amitav because both of us worked in the US and then shifted to India to work in the education sector here. I'm very keen to learn how he has managed to form deep partnerships with the government in the work that he has done. Extraordinarily measured about scale, Amitav has chosen the path of how do you sort of get it right first, even sort of refusing an offer to work with 1,000 schools, with a major state government. There are a lot of myths that are out there when people think about shifting from the corporate sector to the development sector. Since both of us have done and made that transition, I'm going to see if we can bring that out as well. Welcome, Amitav, to the show.
Thank you, Pranav.
So glad to have you here.
Thanks so much.
So why the switch in 2008? I mean, you had all the right things going for you, right? You went to some of the best colleges and schools in India. You went to a top-notch MBA in the US. You had a fledgling career at the pharma company. Why ruin what's going really well?
I think the only thing that was missing in all of this was a sense of happiness. I really was struggling to go to work every single day of my life, whether it was in America or in Bombay or back in Delhi, because I didn't enjoy what I did. I had no passion for what I did. I couldn't care less whether I was at work or not. In fact, I'd find ways to not show up in the office because it was so boring. So while the money was good and the job was secure, and I would say, life was kind of carrying on, there was absolutely no desire whatsoever. And it's not that that's what I was looking for, but I wish it was there, because if it was there, then maybe I would have not made a switch.
But all this is well when you say I was bored, I wanted to do something interesting, but there's some important life decisions, right? They're harsh. I mean, it's not easy. You get used to a certain lifestyle, to a certain income level. You have a wife, you had a child in 2008. I mean, at that, when all of these important life expenses were rising, how did you then decide to give it all away and join the social development sector?
Yeah. I think there is a bit of a myth when it comes to the social development sector. I think gone are the days where the social sector is a sector where people give up. They give up what they were doing in their previous life, and I think it's still referred to as giving up. I gave up nothing. I gave up no lifestyle. I gave up no comforts. I gave up no luxuries. In fact, I was recruited and headhunted by a search firm which was looking for somebody that had my kind of background. Somebody who had a management degree, somebody who had actually worked in corporate India and for that matter in corporate America, who brought rigor and discipline and culture and learning, something that the development sector felt that they're lacking. So, and they were willing to pay me for it. So it wasn't that I sacrificed anything when I made a switch to the development sector. And like I say, I think it is largely a myth to think, yes, you probably take a slight pay cut, but there are a lot of organizations today, large foundations, international and domestic, that will match your corporate pay. In some instances, depending on what level you're coming in, some of the junior levels, they may be even paying you more than you got paid because you come in at a slightly senior level when you make that switch. So I think the sector needs to be sort of re-looked at in terms of how they pay people and how they respect people. I think it's a bit of a myth more than it is the reality.
So Amitav, you have spent 10 years working on this one narrow topic of public-private partnership to improve learning in government schools. Some people feel that they should get a well-rounded experience. Spend 2 years in PPP, spend another 2 in curriculum, another 2 in teacher training, another 2 in edtech, and then sort of the solution would come clear. Why did you choose to stick to one narrow theme in education, even when the conditions are extremely hostile? Right? PPP in education is probably one of those extremely fragile, extremely flammable things that would evoke from the unions, right? Yeah. So why did you choose this and why did you stick to it for 10 years?
Yeah, so I started my first 6 years, Pranav, at an organization called ARK, where I actually did a variety of things. We worked on teacher training, we worked on school principal training, we worked on vouchers, we even looked at this whole definition of quality and the assessments around quality at the state level. So in fact, I did do a variety of things. I started narrowing down on where I wanted to focus only 4 years ago. So that was 6 years into my journey in the social sector. And why I felt this is where we need to focus is because I felt that what is missing in the government system cannot be solved for by doing all of the things I had done in the first 6 years of my working life, right? I felt that there is one grave foundation within government that is missing, and that is the foundation of accountability, right? A foundation on which every other layer is built. Whether you do teacher training or you do recruitment or you do development of curriculum or you do leadership capacity, it is all built off of the premise that each of these things, when they are done and done well, will be accountable to the stakeholders outside, right? The parent and the child, any stakeholder. If that foundation is missing, there is no value in building something because it will just crumble, it will fall, it's like a black hole, it will get swallowed and you won't even know where it was. That's what I saw happen in the first 6 years of my life in the social sector. I didn't want to just keep repeating that. I didn't want to come in and say, I'll keep throwing this inputs at the government with the hope that something is going to stick and that they'll be able to do it. I wanted to come in and say, let me build this layer of accountability through external provision by partnering with them. And I'll tell the government, you hold me accountable for a certain set of outcomes, and then I'll build these layers on top to make sure that we deliver against those. That's what we're doing. Now, till such time I feel we can change this within government and help them build a layer of accountability, we'll continue to work with them.
So Amitav, we meet a lot of industry leaders, corporate sectors, general friends and family, and everybody seems to have an opinion on the education sector because everybody has gone to school, everybody feels that they know education because, they were part of the education system. And sometimes there's this feeling that the education, it's a very simple problem to solve. Just fix teacher training and it would get done. Just the political will and that's all that it needed. Do you think that the complexity of the problem is trivialized when a layman asks questions? Given that you've spent a decade in this industry, how would you answer them?
So you're absolutely correct. I think I get this from friends and family all the time, that how hard can it be getting a good school available to every child in this country, right? All you need is decent infrastructure and teachers and it's done. The way I go about doing this, Pranav, is, and actually the answer is quite tough. It's because it's hard for people to understand how the system is built and how intertwined and sort of complicated the system is. And I give them examples of what it takes to get a broken window fixed in a government school. And when I explain that to them, then they understand that, wow, just to get a broken window fixed in a government school takes 2 months because there are 16 different people who have to approve it and 4 different departments that actually are responsible for it. And one single authority that has to sign off on all of these papers. Then they understand that how bureaucratic, how administrative, how inefficient the government system is. So I think they empathize with that. And then of course the follow-up question is, well, how are you going to change all of this, right? I mean, it's followed quite obviously by the most obvious question, which is, do you really think that this is something you could change? And the question that I keep telling myself and asking my team and myself is, if we don't do it, who will? Right? And somebody's got to start somewhere. We may be a very small drop in the ocean, but at least we will be that drop in the ocean. Hopefully many such drops will come after us. But we need to inspire others to say, we took on the challenge to at least try.
You know, you bring a lot of realism to this debate, right? Everywhere around we hear lofty ambitions that there'll be a world where everybody would be learning well, you know, every child would have the access, everybody would have a great education. In some ways, those vision, mission is inspiring, in some ways it's lofty, in some ways it's a call to action, it's a dream. But you are coming at this from a very, you know, if I may call it realistic / pessimistic / let me do, you know, what the best I can. So why the diffidence?
So actually it's not, I'm not sure if it's diffidence, but I think you have to be real in what you can achieve, right? We've gone about doing this very systematically and we're in it for the long haul. I have said I'm going to commit my life to doing this. I've got maybe hopefully 30 more good years left in me of work, where in the next 30 years, if I can even make education reform a priority for government, I'll achieve my objective. Right? Let alone try and get every kid a good quality education. And why I believe that is the case is because that's how slow moving a beast this is going to be. That is how complicated this beast is. And that's how low of a priority right now education is in the minds of a lot of people in our country. So I go about it doing it saying that we have a very lofty mission in mind where we want every child in India to be able to access a good quality school. That's where we would like to see this go. We won't achieve it, but what can we achieve every single day is what we set out to do.
Amitav, if I heard you right, you said you will devote 40 years, 10 that you've already done, 30 more in the future, and your goal is every child sort of, or education becoming a priority in the discourse. Do you really think spending this whole lifetime is worth it? I mean, I heard you say that if we don't do it, who else? But really, like 40 years to just get it to the top of the priority list, somehow seems off, right? I mean, education's got to be on the priority, right? Parents are concerned about their children's education. Wouldn't it be just part of the political agenda, the part of the priority that citizens demand?
So, you know, you go back historically, Pranav, to the last 20, 30 years, I think parents have been demanding education for their children, right? Unfortunately, if you look at schools, right, it's hard for even literate parents and educated parents like myself today to be able to define succinctly what I mean by a good quality education. If you ask 10 people sitting in a room, what is their definition of a good quality education? I will almost guarantee you will get 10 different responses. Because there is no A definition of what good quality schools or good quality education looks like. So I think today demanding something that you don't even know yourself, what you're asking for, is a big, big challenge. Then you go down to the next rung of parents who are not literate, who haven't gone through this education themselves. What they are demanding for right now is access to schools. So their demand of politicians is, please build us a school, please make sure that there's furniture in it, please make sure there's clean drinking water, please make sure there's a separate toilet for girls and boys. These are all things that politicians promise and they deliver against. You know today that 98% of our children across this country have access to a school building.
Right.
But of those 98%, I think less than 80% have access to good schooling, to good quality education, right? So I think that demand is still lacking. Fundamentally, I believe in the next 30 years, if I can get parents to start demanding that as a fundamental right for their children, which it is as per the Constitution, politicians will start making a priority of it. Today, the priority is access to school, not access to good quality education. That needs to change.
So how will then parents determine what is good quality education?
So, you know, I think today they've started understanding. If you've seen that in the last 2011 to 2016, 17 million children left government schools and 13 million additional children joined private schools. So in essence, there's an exodus of children from government schools to private schools. Why is that happening? Because parents have started realizing what a school is supposed to do. I speak to people in my own house who say, we're pulling our kids out of a government school because yahan pe padhai nahi hoti hai. No teacher shows up, no principal is concerned, nothing is happening, no homework is given, no books are available. We are going to pull our kid out and send them to a private school. That is, I think, the first understanding of what a school is supposed to do. It is not just throwing freebies at the kids of saying, we'll give you uniforms and books and a midday meal. It's to say that we will educate you well. So parents have started realizing what a school is supposed to do. With that hope, they have at least pulled their kids out and agreed to send them to a private school. The next sort of milestone for them is, what will this achieve in terms of their employability? Will they actually go to college? Will they be able to get a job? Will that job be better than the job me and my husband have had in the past? And will this cycle continue to move us up the ladder of, economic prosperity?
But are you saying privatization will solve all the problems of good education?
No, in fact, the privatization in my mind will not solve any of the problems, because why I think private is not the answer to government is today the debate between private schools and government schools is a very interesting one. Government schools have set the bar of education so low that the private sector has come in and said, here's a wonderful opportunity for me to capitalize on this low bar, this low expectation, right? This is a market opportunity. A lot of people, and 500,000 such schools have mushroomed in the last 20 years, capitalizing on the failure of the government system. So in my definition, that's not the answer, because they're doing better than what exists in terms of competition. They're not doing good. I feel that needs to be done, and that will be best done by government, which is why we're trying to fix underperforming, failing government schools by raising the bar even higher, higher than existing government, higher than existing private, so that parents start choosing government schools again. That is our sort of mantra, and that's where we're headed.
But how will you determine this? When will you know that you have reached your mission of improving the quality? On what yardsticks do you measure this? What tools do you use to measure this?
So we are working on a project in Delhi with the South Delhi Municipal Corporation. We're working in 26 schools out of the 580 that they run. We started only 3 years ago, so we've been growing every year. And we've set ourselves essentially 3 key performance indicators, which are extremely measurable and very simple to be able to track. The first and foremost is student enrollment. The schools that we take over, when we take them over and start working with the government, typically have very low enrollment numbers, student enrollment numbers. We started with the first school which had 9 kids, which now has 450 kids. The combined total of the schools that we took over in 2017 was 3,400. Today, the combined number of students in these 26 schools is 7,000. So we've more than doubled. That's the first indicator. The second indicator is student attendance and teacher attendance. The average student attendance in a South Delhi Municipal Corporation school is 58%. This is data that was actually published recently in the newspapers, collected by a non-profit organization. That low, right? This is reported attendance. Our average attendance has gone up to 78% in our school. So we've got a 20 basis point jump, but still not where we would like to be. Ideally, you would want children attending 85% of the time, right? But unfortunately, the kind of children we're dealing with and the backgrounds they come from, they fall ill much more, they go home a lot more often. Their parents don't value education as much as they should, so they will keep them away if it's raining, or if the sibling is unwell, or if they've gone to work and someone needs to take care of the house. So they are pulled out of school or made to miss school for very trivial reasons, which we hope will change over time as they start seeing the value of education. That's the second indicator. And the third indicator, which I think is equally important, if not more, is that on learning outcomes. Are our children learning or not? And we test all our kids every year externally in English, Hindi and math across grades. What we've seen, and just to share very early data, is that if a typical child in a government school is takes our test, which is a standardized evaluation, the increase that they would see year on year with no intervention or no support from any external agencies would be 5 basis points per test. What we've seen happen in our schools is on those same tests where government school children are increasing by 5 basis points because we've tested them, our kids are showing an improvement of 17 to 18 basis points. So we're talking about a 3x pace of learning in the partnership schools versus a 1x pace in a government school.
So Amitav, we talked about how the public is voting with its feet by taking students away from government schools, sending them to private. You're saying the private schools are better, but they are not yet good or good enough, right? And then you mentioned about how you're working with the government school systems and trying to make them, reach an aspirational level, right? So why do you think only the government will be able to solve this problem? What you're trying to do, why do you think the private sector not do?
So, I would love it if we could shift the debate from government versus private to one of good quality education versus poor quality education. It doesn't matter who the provider is, right? Today we've chosen to try and fix government schools because 180 million of the 250 million children that go to schools go to government schools. Secondly, why we've chosen to work with the government is that they have all the resources, including the infrastructure available, which is not being utilized well. Just to give you one data point, there are 1 million schools in our country, government schools in our country, of which 431,000, that's 43% of them, have fewer than 50 children in them, right? So they're small schools and they're empty schools. If we can just get children back into these schools and run them well, we don't need to set up a parallel system. The private school system has only come to be because the government school system is failing. You don't need two systems. And I don't care who delivers. You could deliver it through public, you could deliver it through private, you could deliver it through public-private. It doesn't matter. But what you should be looking for is who can provide a good quality education. And like I had said, let's define what good quality looks like. Let's find the best people who can deliver good quality. Let's regulate quality using the right set of parameters, and then let's encourage people to deliver it and scale it. That's sort of how we would like to see the next 10, 15 years pan out.
Amitav, you mentioned that there are 1 million government schools, 180 million customers, children that they are serving. With all due respect, you're working with 26 schools and 7,000 children. I mean, this doesn't even seem like a drop in the ocean, right? So what is this experiment all about? What is the statement that you're trying to make?
Yeah, so Pranav, Rome wasn't built in a day. And that's the way I look at it. We start small, but we want to get it right. We were approached by a state government that I had gone to with this model 2 years ago, who wanted us to set up 1,000 schools in the first year, right? I respectfully declined that offer only because I knew we would have failed. We hadn't even done one school at the time, but he was ready to give us 1,000 schools. He was even ready to look at co-funding, everything that a stakeholder would have wanted and a person like me would have wanted at the time. He was ready to do, but we weren't ready ourselves.
But Amitav, are you crazy? There's a government willing to give you 1,000 schools, willing to give you money, and you're going to scale really fast and you decided not to do it. That sounds crazy. That's the opposite of what all of us do.
I agree with you. My only concern there was I wasn't ready to do it at that scale, and I wasn't confident that our model had been proven. To get it right is more important than to get it at scale. I don't mean to diss others in the sector, but I think there is a hurry to scale before you have got it right. I told you earlier, where are our kids headed? Is our education system delivering that or not? I don't want to become another affordable private school that is just doing marginally better than a government school. I think we've solved for that problem, and I think we've solved for that at scale. I'm trying to solve the problem of how can every kid in this country get a great quality education so that he or she can thrive in the 21st century. So I'm working at it one school at a time. We started with 1, then we went to 11, we're at 26. We're now talking of working in multiple states on a larger scale. What I believe this will do, to your question of there are 1 million schools, we're only doing 26, is that it will prove to be a catalyst for change. I don't propose to come in and run 1 million schools for the government because that is not my job. But what I believe these schools can do, if I can set up 20 such schools in every state or every district of every state in the country, we'll have enough of an evidence that children that go to government schools can also learn well. I think that's the myth we're trying to bust right now by saying, "Garib bacche hain, to ye to seekh nahi sakte." Not true. Our kids today in government schools are learning at 3 times the pace of children in other government schools, which means our kids can learn better and faster. Let's prove that, let's prove it at scale, and let's catalyze a change where every teacher, every school principal, every department of education, and every person working in the field of education believes that every child can learn well.
But Amitav, जब 26 स्कूल के साथ करोगे, when you deploy so many resources where you are doing school visits itself, obviously children might learn 3 times, right? Now when you're talking about 20 schools in each district, that's when it gets exciting. But where will you get the people? I mean, this capacity doesn't exist in the system, no?
Yeah. So I agree. I mean, the capacity doesn't exist today. I actually went back and studied the charter school model in the US, which is now 25 years in play. And the academy model in the UK, which has also been around for 20 plus years. And I also looked back and said, where were these great charter school operators before the law came to be? There was no Kipp 20 years ago. There was no Uncommon. There was no Rocket Ship. There was no Match. None of these guys existed, right? But what happened is when legislation got formed, good people came forward and said, we'll deliver against that. What I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to create enough of an evidence pool of great quality government schools and have that push for legislation. Push for states to say this is great, we must do it at scale. We must put a policy and a law in place which invites people to come in and work with us. And I will guarantee you, if I'm able to make that happen, organizations will change what they do today to come in and do this. Because it will be self-sustaining. It is certainly delivering very high quality results as we would have proven, and it can change the face of government schools. So I believe organizations will get created once there is a law in place and there's a policy in place inviting people to come and do this.
Is that what you're trying to do then in India? Are you trying to create a set of processes, a blueprint on, how should you select a provider? How should you measure their performance? At what points do you take decisions? What are the yardsticks of success that would be done? Is that sort of what you're pushing?
Absolutely. That's exactly what the role that my organization plays is exactly that. We help states build a capacity to even engage with non-profits. How does that happen? How do you set a process in place where using the right set of criteria, you bring in non-profits to come and work with you so that they can deliver against your need, right? We help do that. Third, what is the due diligence that you must do when you go out and evaluate a partner? Are you looking at the size of operation? Are you looking at their ability to raise money? Are you looking at how well they've educated children in the past? Are you looking at the type of children they engage with? So on and so forth. So we've built a very complex framework which looks at a whole host of different things and then allows you to evaluate and say, is this the right partner for me or not? We've also put in the whole thing I've been talking about, defining quality. What do we mean by quality? And once you've defined what quality looks like, how do you measure quality? And once you've measured quality, what do you do with the results? Right? These are all things the government is not used to. So we've helped put that in place so that governments can do that. And then lastly, helping the government grow this and learn from this so that their own system can engage with some of these learnings coming out of this smaller pilot.
How much time should a CEO spend on the ground, at the last mile, looking at the schools, talking to the teacher, the parent? Because you get drawn towards conferences and emails and fundraising. So what is the right balance that CEOs should have?
So in the ideal world, if I could just sort of put this idealistically, a CEO and their senior staff and all staff in an organization, in an ideal world, should spend 90% of their time in the field.
90%?
90% of their time.
When do you do the real work then?
That is the real work. That is the real work. And that's my point. Conferences and talk shows and stuff is not the real work. It's to just talk about the work you do, but it's not the real work. I don't spend 90% of my time in the field. I wish I could. The reason I say that, Pranav, is that is really where the true learning is. That is where you are every day realizing what it is you're trying to solve and whether you're solving it or not. Not in a boardroom, not in an air-conditioned office. You have no clue what's happening on a daily basis. And it changes. It changes every day. I may do something with a kid today in a school which has an impact on their, not only him or her, but on their family, on their home, on their income, on a whole host of other things. And if I don't pick up on that and I don't talk to them about that, I don't know about it. I don't change my strategy, I don't change my approach, I don't change my interventions, I don't redesign my programs, because I'm not aware of the change that it has brought about in a person's life. So it can only happen if you're engaging with them regularly. Of course, our people who are out in the field on a daily basis bring this back to us, but I think hearing it for yourself is very different than hearing it from someone else's point of view.
Do you remember a time when you were on the field, you heard someone or you saw something, and then you made a strategy change or an intervention design?
Absolutely. Happened 2 weeks ago. I was out in a school, one of our schools, and I was observing our children being assessed. It was a mathematics paper being done through one of our external evaluation partners. It was in Hindi, and it was administered like a test is administered to most children in any school. It was just a paper of 35 questions with some instructions given on them, all in Hindi. And it was handed out by an external invigilator, and children were made to sit in rows and on benches. And then they were given instructions on a board, and they were said, time starts now and go. So I observed this and observed the entire lesson, and the entire test. I sat through the entire 45 minutes that they were allocated to do this, and just looked at how children were reading and how they were responding and what are the questions they were asking for clarification, and how they would look at me when I came by the desk, and so on and so forth, and how they would peer into each other's papers. And it was just an interesting observation. So I did that on day one. I took those papers, I worked with the agency, and I quickly sort of scanned through them, and I saw the results. And when I looked at the results, I was really disappointed, because I didn't expect my grade 3 children who I spent 3 years with to perform the way they performed. At best, the children on average were at about 40-50%. In terms of the number of questions they were able to answer correctly. And that was very, very disappointing. So I came back and I spent 2 days with my team just analyzing that, and I said, this is what's going on. Do you think this is reflective of our kids? Let's speak to some of our school partners and ask them, is this what they think their children are capable of doing, and is this how they would have expected their children to perform in those tests? And all our partners said no. They were shocked. They said 40-50% in a grade 3 maths paper? No, we can't believe it. They should be much higher. So we debated that, and we said within my team, and I said, can we do this differently? I think my children know maths well, but I don't think they can read. So I want to go back and do the same maths paper, but take out the language bias in that maths paper. So I will still question them on how many apples are there on this tree, or what is the maximum number of cars in the 4 rows that you see below, but I will not ask them to read this question out, but still see if their mathematical concepts are intact or not. And guess what I found, Pranav, when I did that orally, and I did it. I did this with the same set of children who had taken that test that day, and I went back and I saw a 40 percentage point difference in the results. 40%. These kids were performing at an average of 90%. So that is telling you why being in the field is so important. No one would have ever picked this up. I just picked this up only because it concerned me, and it concerned me also because I have a 9-year-old child sitting in my house who's in grade 4, who would have taken a similar test, who could have got a 40%, but in reality she knows 90%. Right? So as a concerned parent, I wanted to redo this, and we did, and this is what I found. I would have never found this out. And today I question the results of that. Is I question the way we're testing our kids. So moving forward on our external evaluations, we're really going to work with our agency to see, can we test them more accurately, as opposed to in a standard manner which is not depicting the facts.
We talked about interesting problems that you are solving in the development sector, right? I find that there are interesting problems and then there are important problems, right? What are some of the most exciting, important problems that you see can be solved in the development sector?
I think today the biggest question is, are we failing our children, and can we do something about it? Are our children prepared for the future? Are our children ready to face the challenges that the 21st century is going to pose when they come into the workplace? Are we as adults and providers of education for them giving them the best that they deserve? We don't know the answer to that. We don't even know what that world is going to look like. And so therefore, every day I think to ask ourselves that question and then find the best way to answer it is a really important question. And I feel a lot of us are trying to do that. So maybe someday we will get somewhere.
Thank you so much, Amitav, for carving out time from an extremely busy schedule.
It was my pleasure.
It was really fun and I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks, Pranav.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
you.
Amitav.